Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way at the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick. The Heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory. Williams is the running back next to Howe. Play action. Howe will now lob it down the near side. Newsom with a man all over him. Pins the ball against the back of the defender and brings it in. Heels can get a first down at the 3. Now, pump fake to the right. Now he's going to run to the left. Now at the 5. Takes the shot. Pinballing off the Canes for the touchdown. Sam Howe showing the toughness for 6. Cardinals down 4, 35-31. They have the shotgun snap. Pressure coming. Rolls to the right. Goes to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Antoine Green! 16 seconds to go. No flag. Snapping it off the 8-yard line. May pulls it, tries to roll it apart. Oh, now he's going to throw it and score! Christian May throws it to Paystor in the end zone for the touchdown. They are throwing it left hand. Was walking out on the run and threw it left-handed. Nard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Theo at the 35. Theo, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Theo, he's going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Blog podcast. I'm your host, Josh Marlowe, here with you guys on a Wednesday night of a game week. That means it's time to recap another Bill Belichick press conference, the head coach of the Tar Heels. He met with the media yesterday ahead of this Saturday's matchup with the Clemson Tigers and spoke with for about 18 minutes or so. I grabbed 5 of the best sound bites that I thought he gave the media. We're here to play those, and I'll give my thoughts and opinions on that interaction with the media for tonight's edition of the podcast. Of course, tomorrow night we'll be back with the full-blown Clemson preview, which will kick off a big night of podcast for us as we'll have the Heel Tough Blog Clemson preview. We'll have the Four Corners live to also preview the blue-white scrimmage game on Saturday. 2 events that both Anthony and I will be in attendance for on Saturday morning. We'll get up early, make the trip to Chapel Hill, be in attendance for Carolina Clemson, and then we'll make our way over to the Dean Dome to watch the blue-white scrimmage, and we'll have full coverage of that both on the podcast and on the website, so you're going to want to make sure you check all that coverage out. Let's go ahead, though, and get right into this latest press conference that Bill Belichick conducted earlier this week. And Carolina's in a weird situation right now where they're coming off a bye week. They play Clemson, and then they go into another bye week. If you listen to the radio show, Jones Angel kind of got this point across. Just one game for Carolina in 27 days. So a lot of practice time for the Heels. And according to Bill Belichick, he thought the team got better during the week off, and he talked about the specific areas where he felt like his team improved during the bye.
You know, really all of them, whether it's man coverage, zone coverage, pass blocking, pass rush, double team blocks, crack blocks, perimeter force, you name it. We addressed all the things that are, foundational to not just one play, but maybe carry over into a segment of plays or calls and worked on those. Same thing in the kicking game, addressed each area and kind of calibrated on the punt return, kickoff return, and, address some areas that haven't been as good as we want it to be, and looked at other areas that are, I think, going pretty good, those parts of certain plays, and say, okay, we need to do those, continue to do those well, and improve in the areas that, we are still not really executing as well as we need to. Made some changes in some of the, made some adjustments in some of the things that we were doing. So we'll see how all that comes together. But it's a combination of all those things, not just one thing. Fundamental areas, are
all right. So, I think we're going to really learn a lot about this staff in these 27 days. because, Anthony and I kind of voiced our disconcerns, our lack of, I guess, acceptance of the way Carolina's looked in both of their losses, getting blown out by TCU, a good team in the Big 12, and getting blown out by a Central Florida team that followed that up with a double-digit loss on the road at Kansas State. Kansas State among one of the biggest disappointments in the country after starting the season preseason ranked inside the top 25. But Belichick, Lombardi, they stress we need practice time. We need just time with this group that didn't come together until the spring to just work on everything that we were trying to work and teach these guys on. Well, they've got that with this one game in 27-day period. They're not making excuses, but in their opinion, the preseason training camp, not long enough. But this kind of odd schedule allows them to work on some things. And so if they can really, correct some things and improve upon some things in this, with these 2 bye weeks, scheduled around one game, then maybe Carolina can do what they need to do in ACC play to get to 6-6 and get to a bowl game. Which, by the way, if you get to a bowl game, guess what you get? An additional 12 to 15 more practices, depending on what bowl game you go to. That's even more time for guys that are going to be in the program for next year to really learn what Belichick and this staff are wanting these guys to hone in on fundamentally. So I think we're kind of wait and see mode. We all got to see what it looks like on Saturday when we gather in Kenan Stadium. But if this staff is really worth their salt, if this staff is really worth the money that Carolina invested in, then I do think it's fair to expect a better product on Saturday and moving forward. I'm not saying it's going to be a better result. There could still be losses for Carolina on the scoreboard, but it should look better and it should be a lot more competitive. And it should excite you that the head coach is enthusiastic about the progress he thought his team made during the week off last week. A big thing that we talked about going into the Central Florida game was the potential return of Austin Blasky. He is back for Carolina among that offensive line. And Belichick spoke about how the return of Blasky impacts the stability of that entire unit across the board.
I think ultimately, the conversation comes down to getting your 5 best players on the field. But also playing the best combination, the 5 players who in combination play the most effectively. So it's kind of in baseball, it's hard to have 2 catchers, even though they might be your 2 best players. So we have to kind of balance out what's our best line versus trying to get our best players on the field. And with Blasky, he's awesome because he can really play every position. He's played center, guard, both tackle spots, so he gives us a lot of flexibility. And I think it will help us, find the rest of the line and the consistency with it. So, but Moore and King have done a pretty solid job on the right side, and so we'll just kind of work through the rest of it here. But having Austin back has been a big, it was a big lift for us, and obviously he hasn't played in several weeks, and the Central Florida game was, a quick turnaround for him, but I thought he handled himself pretty well, and he looked better last week. I'm sure he'll get better as he gets more reps out there, and we'll just have to figure out what the best combination is.
I think that's the thing this staff hopefully can figure out going into this game on Saturday. It's what's the best 5 on the, that plays together. It might not be the most 5 talented guys, your most gifted 5 offensive linemen, but which 5 work the best together? Because, we spent so much time talking and complaining about Gio Lopez's struggles, but until Carolina gets consistent up front, then you cannot expect anything to improve from the quarterback position. The return of Blasky helps that. But now you've got to find the other 4 guys that best fit alongside of him to really maximize that unit. And hopefully Carolina is getting closer and closer to doing that in this rotation process that we've seen. Hopefully that is really coming to an end when Carolina takes the field against Clemson on Saturday afternoon. Speaking of the quarterback, that's the big discussion point going into the Clemson game. We've kind of made our thoughts known about Gio Lopez. Anthony is completely out on him, does not think that he's a Power 5, Power 4 conference quarterback. I'm definitely Been surprised by his struggles, but do think there is something to work with if Freddie Kitchens were to adapt the offense to better suit his strengths. We've seen Max Johnson come in relief duty twice, and the offense look a lot better, operate at a much more quicker, more efficient rate. And so Belichick was asked about, did they consider making a quarterback change during the off week?
Look, we have two experienced quarterbacks and two freshmen. So the two experienced quarterbacks are ahead of the freshmen at this point. But I'd say those freshmen are gaining ground, and they're making improvement on a steady basis as well. So Gio wasn't able to practice last week, so we practice with the guys that we have, and we'll see how that goes today, and figure it out for this coming game. But look, Gio's improved a lot, and offensively, again, we just haven't been consistent enough in any area. But we're getting closer, and so we'll continue to push ahead on that. And when Gio's able to practice, we'll see how much improvement he has made and can make. If he's not, then the players will be in.
It does sound like if Gio Lopez is healthy enough, that's the direction that Carolina is going to roll with moving forward. Anthony and I had this conversation this morning at work. I do think obviously Max Johnson gives you the best chance to win now. And if this staff is trying to get to a bowl game, I do think Max Johnson is the best avenue for Carolina to get there. If they don't necessarily value getting to a bowl game and they're using this as an entire evaluation season to figure out what they need to do going into the offseason next year from a transfer portal perspective, then I do understand playing Gio Lopez to get the biggest sample size you can get of him at the Power 4 conference level, to then see, okay, do you want to go to Bryce Baker next year, or do you seek out maybe another quarterback in the transfer portal this upcoming offseason? Nonetheless, you're not going to get the best evaluation of Gio unless you do the things that suits Gio to play at the level that saw you go get him from South Alabama and invest $2.1 million in him. You've got to put him in a bunch of RPOs. You've got to put him, I think, in an up-tempo, no-huddle offense with design quarterback runs that utilize his legs. If they're still going to be married to this slow, methodical, pro-style offense, then they'll get the evaluation of Gio Lopez, which will be they need to move on from him, but you'll not get the best evaluation of him because you have not put him in a position one time this season to succeed. And so I think that's why he has to be frustrated. I think you got to really applaud him because he hasn't hung his head. He's gone out there and competed every time that he's walked on the football field and done the best that he can do. But I think he knows deep down, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I envisioned when this staff recruited me and when I committed to this staff. But, nonetheless, it does appear that Gio Lopez will be Carolina's starter on Saturday if he is healthy enough to play. Two more sound bites for you, and we'll go ahead and get out of this edition of the press conference recap podcast. We know there was a lot made this offseason about the relationship and the admiration that Dabo Swinney has for Bill Belichick, that Bill Belichick has for Dabo Swinney. And Belichick talked about his relationship with Dabo going into this game.
I mean, my relationship with Dabo is great. Saturday afternoon, we're on opposite sides of the field, so, it is what it is. And, I'll do everything I can to help my team. I'm sure he'll do everything he can to help his. But in the end, I would just say, I think Dabo's done a great job with that program. I have a ton of respect for not only what he's accomplished on the field and his record and all that, but the way he's done it, the players that he's turned out. You can tell that they've come from a program that's very well run and turns out men. And I've dealt with a number of guys, certainly not all of them by any stretch, but I've dealt with a number of them that have come from his leadership and his program. And I've talked to them about what they do, and they're very complimentary of what their experience was at Clemson, and I can see why, and those people represent the school and the program very well. So a ton of respect for Dabo, a ton of respect for Clemson, and all the other people that go with it. I mean, it's more than obviously just him, but clearly he provides a lot of leadership there.
All right, so nothing that we haven't already heard from Belichick on Dabo. And I think it's why ESPN still prioritized this game. It'll be a noon kick on ESPN, but this could have been a game that, given Carolina's record, given Clemson's record, maybe could have gotten relegated to the ACC network, maybe even the CW. But ESPN values the brand of Clemson, the brand of North Carolina under Bill Belichick. These two coaches are the big reason why. And it'll be, I think, a talking point during Saturday's game day coverage, just because, Clemson entered with all the expectation of being a top 5 team to maybe win a national championship. Carolina, just the unknown of Bill Belichick, and both teams in their own unique ways have not lived up to their expectations going into the year. And so it does make for, I think, must-watch television, maybe in a negative connotation. But in the new world of the ACC, eyeballs equals revenue. And so this is a good thing for Carolina that ESPN still values this game and was willing to put them on their network. No, and not in the prime window at 7:30, but that noon window is still a pretty big deal, as we've seen here throughout the first month or so of the college football season. The last soundbite is something that does not involve anything directly with this year. It's more of a big picture item, but Michael Lombardi made it known that he sent out a letter to all the boosters that this is going to be a process, and then it's going to take them a little bit of time to build this program up and compete at the level that I think everyone wants to see this program compete at. And so Brian Murphy of WRAL asked Belichick, does he view this now as a 2 to 3 year rebuild?
I don't look at it as anything other than I'm going to do the best I can to coach the team today, help the team prepare for Clemson and play well on Saturday. And at the same time, recruit and build the team for next year through the high school opportunities that we have now. There'll be a portal that will occur later on, but again, that's very vague at this point because nobody knows in a portal or so forth. So that's really a bridge to cross at another time. But we've recruited a lot of high school players that I think will be good fit in our program here. And the numbers are high because the low numbers from the previous 2 years, allow for that. So time frame, expectations, all that. I mean, I don't have any conversation about that. I'm just going to do the best I can for this team at this point in time, and at the same time, we're going to recruit and try to bring in high school players that will really be the foundation of the team. And eventually, once your program's established, then I think whether it's pro free agency or college transfer portals, you supplement your team with players in those areas that can help the team because you have a certain need or opportunity to improve your team through those acquisitions. And so that's, the way that they would generally be used for. I don't think you can really build a team through free agency or transfers.
All right, so they kind of spent a little bit more time on this during the radio show on Monday, talking about how they're really viewing this year as this upcoming recruiting cycle as the year that they're going to establish the foundation for the program. I mean, Michael Lombardi says they're going to bring in as many as 40 freshmen. And then they'll fill out the roster via the transfer portal from there moving forward. If you were a fan of the Bill Belichick hire like I was and was behind it, but you've been maybe concerned about the way that it looked with the losses to TCU and Central Florida, I do think the reason why it's okay to not be completely out on Belichick is I think he knows the hard truth, is that the NFL is done with him. He does not have a future coaching in the National Football League. And so if he wants to continue to coach football, it's going to have to be at the collegiate level. And I do think there is a commitment to him or to this, that he's here for the long haul. We can talk about the buyouts and all the off the field stuff, but I think he knows that this is right now the only place that's going to employ him. And I do think him and Michael Lombardi have laid out a vision for the next 3 to 5 years of building this program up and getting it ready to compete and play at the highest level. Is it going to happen under Belichick? I can't guarantee that. I'd like to say that he gets to reap the rewards, but it could be a situation where by the time he builds this thing up to hand it off to his son or maybe another trusted confidant, that then Carolina is ready to compete for conference championships or an at-large berth in the college football playoffs. So, everyone says that you don't. It's okay to expect to win now because everyone can win now with the way that the sport operates with the portal, the way that your roster can change year over year. But I do think Belichick does have it right. You still got to establish your foundation and then supplement your roster with the portal. They were not able to do that a year ago. That's the goal for this recruiting cycle. All the recruits that they're bringing in this 2026 recruiting class, which I believe has 34 commits, that's going to be the foundation. Those guys are going to be the hallmark of whatever this program achieves under Belichick, and will be a part of whatever sort of success that they're able to get to during his watchful tenure. So I do think, for all the concerns that we have had and we continue to have with the Jordan Hudson thing and maybe just his age and his energy, there does seem to be a commitment that he and Michael Lombardi are able to express every time they're behind the microphone. And it sounds like they have a plan for how they're going to build Carolina into a football relevant program within the next, hopefully 2 to 3 years at the max. That is going to wrap up this edition of the Heel Tough Blog podcast. In the meantime, guys, we will direct you guys to the website. That's HeelToughBlog.com, where it's about to be the busy season for the website with football and basketball coverage going to be year-round. Now the preseason for basketball is here. For football, there will be a Clemson preview that'll go up on the website. There will be an injury report article that will go up as well. Now that Carolina is in conference play, they are required to release an injury report. So, Anthony, will have you covered on both of those fronts. Of course, we'll come back on Sunday. There'll be the recap of the game as well as for basketball. The preseason content begins this week with the blue-white scrimmage set for Saturday. We'll have a what to watch for type of article for the scrimmage and a takeaway article as well. So you want to make sure you're visiting the website every single day. That's HeelToughBlog.com for the latest and the best coverage of Carolina basketball and Tar Heel football. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Everywhere you find your podcast on the audio side, just search the Heel Tough Blog podcast and we'll pop up. There, we strongly encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the football season. If you consume us on the visual side, the best way to be notified when we go live is to like and follow the Facebook page at Heel Tough Blog, the YouTube channel at Heel Tough Blog, or follow me on my personal Twitter account at HTB_Josh. If you do those things, you will be alerted every time that we go live. And so make sure you get familiar with those three spots if you're a visual consumer to the podcast. That way you don't miss any of my or Anthony's coverage of Carolina football throughout the remainder of the 2025 football season. But with that, folks, it is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank everybody for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.